The following is a special edition of the Royal Round, presented by Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center, in conjunction with the NHL's Hockey Fights Cancer Initiative, supporting Roswell Park and Hawerchuk Strong.
On August 18th, the entire hockey world lost a legend far too soon. Sabres Hall of Famer, Hockey Hall of Famer, Dale Hawerchuk passed away at the age of 57 after battling cancer. And as we continue to stay in the NHL's fight against cancer, we pay tribute to Dale and the entire Hawerchuk family with this special edition of the Royal Round. All eyes were on Dale from such a young age. He was so terrific as a junior player, leading the Cornwall Royals to back-to-back Memorial Cup titles before being drafted by the Winnipeg Jets first overall in 1981. From 81-82 through 96-97, Dale's entire career, he trailed only Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, Mark Messier, and Paul Coffey for points during that stretch. He, of course, had a Canada Cup in 1987, but 90 through 95 with the Buffalo Sabres, he was still at the top of his game, and the statistics would indicate that, leading the team in games played, in assists, in power play points, and of course in playoff games played and points where he was ultra consistent, including from 92 through 93 and into the 94 playoff season. Dale had an 11-game point streak, 7 of which were multi-point playoff games. But I almost feel guilty just talking about Dale Hawerchuk's numbers, because there was so much more to Dale than that. And while we will hear from some incredible guests during the course of this special Royal Round, like Scott Arniel and Gerry Meehan, Clint Malarchuk and Dave Andreychuk, not to mention Doug Bodger, Dave Hannan, and of course, our entire crew of Rob Ray, Marty Biron, and Dan Dunleavy, Brad May was kind enough to share with me when Dale passed, his last interaction with Dale. And Brad, I wanted to bring you in for this special opportunity to share that story and your connection with Dale, which you've told us before certainly had, in part, something to do with that jersey and the number 10.
Yeah, so great segue. First and foremost, at the draft in 1990, Duffer, Dale was traded with Phil Housley, Scott Arniel, and Jeff Parker. There was an exchange, obviously, at the draft floor. And the Buffalo Sabres moved up in the draft and selected me. So my career started with Dale. The jersey sitting behind me or on the wall is my jersey. I stepped into number 10 when Dale left to go to St. Louis, when he left the Sabres. Basically, I took Dale's jersey and just changed the name plaque. Rip Simonek put my name on the back of Dale's jersey. So that number 10 jersey behind me, the assistant captain, I was blessed to assume that role and basically step into Dale's jersey, which really, empowered you to do other things. I was so proud to put on number 10, that jersey, my favorite number, and wear it after Dale Hawerchuk. He was a mentor. He was such a great player, and a lot of great players and captains across the league, they have to be so fixated and so focused on their own duties and their own job, of course, providing points and being successful, that they don't necessarily have time to impart not only their experiences, but their knowledge, and also just life lessons on other players. But me as a young guy coming into the NHL, the only reason why I was fortunate enough to play 19 years, I say the only, because I had a great foundation learning from some of the best and some great individuals, some great character people. Dale being, at the forefront of that list, took me under his wing, talked to me, about everything, about how to be a pro. He would take me on the half wall, breakouts. They'd be like, listen, this is what you have to do. You got to get your feet moving. Little tidbits that you take for granted, when you're not playing. You think, when you watch the sport, that it's easy. These players are gifted, they're capable, and they should know how to play. You're taught how to play. You can either be on the right side of the puck or the wrong side. Dale was that one veteran player who had all the pressures of not only scoring, but being a leader, but he also took time to make his teammates better. I say knowledge, but it's the way he was able to communicate that and teach us all how to become not only better people, because when you're around Dale, you just feel better. He was a guy that walked in to the locker room, and you know what? No matter if you won or lost, or a baby was born, or sickness was in your family, Dale was in touch with it all. He had his thumb on the pulse at all times.
including right to the very end, Brad. And if you could, I'd love it if you could share some of your final exchange with Dale.
I called you Duffer right after, and listen, we're all heartbroken. I guess none of us are going to get out of this life alive. The night before he passed, I got a phone call from his son Eric, who's a friend. I've been close with the family for the last 10 years, and Eric called me and said, my dad's in the living room with the family, and he wants to talk. I got on the phone with Dale. My wife and my daughter were behind me, and I'm talking to Dale. I got it on speaker, and the first question he asked was, Brad, how you doing? Now, it was imminent, clearly, that the end was near. And all he cared about in the phone call to start was, how are the Mays? What are you doing? Hey, by the way, what are you up to now? And what's in store for the greatness of Brad May? And he was so in tune and just so selfless, right? In a time of need when all eyes and all attention should have been on him, he was asking questions about my kids, Tyler and Samantha. What are they doing? What are they going to do? And the one thing I told you, Duffer, and I get a little emotional when I say this, but he said, listen, Brad, whatever you do, don't be in a hurry to come visit me. Which, to me, when I heard that, obviously it was very tearful. And when we were talking, and it maybe one's coming right now, he goes, I want to be upstairs. He goes, I'm going to look over everyone, but I want to watch you do great things. I want you to keep doing what you're doing. Of course, Hawerchuk strong, which he wasn't a blowhard, but he's like, my foundation, all those things are going to continue. I want you to promise that you're going to be part of it. Continue to reach out and make a difference for the causes that were dear to my family. But I just want to watch you. I want to be upstairs and watch you and your family do great things. And you know what? When you get here, I'll be ready for you, and I'll have everything taken care of. That's the kind of guy he was. That was literally within 24 hours of the passing. His family, I've been with his son Eric since, doing a Hawerchuk Strong event. But that's the jersey or the T-shirt. If anybody is inclined, I encourage it, of course. All the money are going to go and continue to support the foundations and charities, Easter Seals being one of them, and not to mention charities in Winnipeg for the Rick Ripken Foundation, Project 37, and True North, who runs the Winnipeg Jets, where Dale's got to start. But all the stuff, all the funds go to that. It's going to be a selfless act for everybody that loves Dale to continue the legacy. When you love somebody and they're not around anymore, it's a reminder that, you know what, this life is precious. And Dale gave us that, and he certainly gave me that in his weaning hours.
Brad, so well said.
In support of Hockey Fights Cancer Month, the Buffalo Sabres are proud to honor the life of Dale Hawerchuk. In his memory, we're offering a limited edition puzzle and poster featuring a mosaic image of the Sabres legend, composed of hundreds of Buffalo Sabres game action shots. Net proceeds will benefit Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center and Hawerchuk Strong. To purchase yours and support the cause, please visit sabres.com/hockeyfightscancer.
In Dale's 5 years here, he played more than anybody else in the regular season, and those who played with him the most have joined us here as well. And Dave Hannan, Doug Bodger, and Brad May alongside Rob and Marty. It is a great collection of guys who should know Dale the most based on playing with him that much. Doug, what was your first impression of Dale Hawerchuk?
Just the way he loved to play the game. He was excited every game. He wanted to win. He wanted to score. He wanted to make everybody better around him, and it was quite the treat to play with a superstar like that. You know, I played with Mario Lemieux, and so did Hannan, obviously, but just loved to be out there, and that was his time. When the puck dropped, man, his eyes lit up, and let's go play. It was a lot of fun to be around.
Dave, did you ever get the sense from Dale, and statistically you would never know this, but I mean, he did arrive at a time when, you know, you had Alex McGillney and LaFontaine would be in the mix as well. Did you ever get the sense that Dale enjoyed not having to be kind of the guy like he was in Winnipeg for so long?
Yeah, you know, he some of the things that, you know, when he'd talk and I got there and sort of got climatized to the team and everything, but you know, with Patty's line, obviously, and Alex and Andy, you know, they were a phenomenal line. And like, you know, he didn't get the matchups that they did. So, you know, the one thing he was he's a gifted offensive player. Donald Audet and Yuri Himalev, I think, played with him when I was there most of the time. But, he wouldn't get the top wingers, but, our second line was really good. We had a super, sort of Patty leading the charge on his line and then Dale behind. And, Dale would play the point in the power play, and Bodge sometimes too, obviously. But, just a great leader, great player, and wanted to win.
Razor, when you look at this collection of players from that team, you must want to prod them for stories that involved all of you.
Well, once again, the three guys you have here, the stories that they would be able to tell, some you might not be able to say on this. But, as far as Hannan talking, when Dale came here, we talked about it, the day he passed, Hannan, that he was the leader. Like in our room, he was the guy that was the leader. He wasn't the captain, but he was the guy that kind of controlled the pulse of the room. Yeah,
he was probably one of the best leaders that I've ever played with. And, I did play obviously with Gretzky and Messier and Lemieux and my travels, but Dale was special. He had a real good feeling on our teams back then, if and you guys can remember Bodge and Brad and May, that we had a good team. I mean, we got beat against Montreal, I think that one year in 3 or 4 overtimes. We had a team to go deep. We just didn't have the certain breaks at the certain times, but I can tell you, for a guy that I rode to the rink with a lot, had his son Eric play with my son Jeff, got to know him a lot, was a true leader and one of the best leaders that I've ever played with.
Hey, can I jump in here for a second?
Always.
Really? Why you go with them to the rink, Hannan, is because you're so cheap you didn't want to pay for the gas in your own vehicle. There's no question Dale Hawerchuk he had an understated elegance to him, and he's a superstar, and he is going to go down and legend. You know what? Dale has left a legacy, and the one thing he did say before he passed was he wants to continue to have his friends reach out to the networks that he built so strongly and continue to raise money for less fortunate people.
You guys talk about the fact that he was a leader in the locker room. I want to know, because I got to meet Dale a few times. I played a couple of alumni games with him. I thought he was a very strong and fierce competitor, even in alumni game for charity. What was his competitive level, and how did that spread around the locker room?
Well, I say it's off the charts. It was off the charts, and I think these guys could say it too. Sometimes you have that superstar player and he's in his own little world. But Dale was so highly competitive going into every game and during every game, but he never always just thought about himself. Like, there'd be times in a game when he would say, hey, Razor, try this, try that. And I'm like, my skill set totally different than what his would have been, but he understood what my limitations were. And he was like, okay, this is going to help us do this. Okay. And so he was always teaching, and you always could learn something from him, even when he was, highly intense in a game and doing his job.
Yeah, that's what I found about him a lot, is he wanted to make everybody else better around him. And he knew that he needed the guys around him to win. And he would give tips to everybody, say, hey, try this, like Razor says. And I got the opportunity to play with Dale in a couple of old-timers games, a few years back. And Marty, like you're saying, and he wanted to win those games. He would laugh at goalies because he would beat them. And he would go, oh, sorry about that one. You made the wrong move there. That was his mentality every time. Like, okay, guys, we've got to go out and burn somebody here. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's do this because it's going to be fun. And I think he just enjoyed that he was so much better than everybody else in his mind and in his hands that it just became fun to him. And he just wanted to spread it to everybody else. And his leadership qualities were, you guys like say, were second to none. And you say he took over that room for sure. And we just were along for the ride.
A great story that I'll share is, we traded Grant Fuhr to St. Louis. We're playing at the odd. I'm killing a penalty with Wayne Presley. I get the puck in the middle of the neutral zone with some good speed. I beat Brett Hull, he trips me, and I land into Grant Fuhr. So Grant, Dale, Alex, we always played golf when they were, with the Sabres, and we go on the road, we play golf. So I land in the net, and Furzy says, hey, you want to make a bet, if you're going to score or not. And I said, sure, what do you want to bet? And he goes, well, let's bet 12 dozen Titleist golf balls, and you got to put your name on them. And I said, okay. So as I'm going back, and I knew I had the penalty shot, I'm going back to the bench, and Dale's standing up. He goes, come on over here and see me. And I said, well, what do you think? He goes, well, go 5-hole. He goes, Furzy, he's going to have the 5-hole. When we score on him in practice all the time, he doesn't move, so just go 5-hole. I said, okay, I'm going 5-hole. So I wind up, and I go down like this, and Furzy had his pads opened up, like it was just beautiful. I could just And as I turned and snapped the puck, he closed his pads. It goes off the pad, hits me in the eye, and I go into the corner, and I get back to the bench, and Dale's going, "You got to shoot it faster, Hannan." I mean, you know, I said, come on. Those are the memories I have, you know, traveling on the road with him. Great memories.
Doug, how would you describe the Sabres power play then? How would you describe Dale as a power play specialist and the chemistry that you two might have had?
Well, it really turned our power play from being good to really good with Andy, Patty, Alex, me. I don't know why, but I guess there was nobody left. And Dale but he would tell me I'm going up and down. He goes, you just stay in the middle, but I'm going to go up and down. And he knew how to find the hole. If Patty and Alex were taken away, then Dale was in the slot right there, wide open. He read the play so well, and nobody had really ever put another forward on the point before. And John Tortorella came up with the idea, and Tort still talks about the power play today. He said that one of the best he's ever had was a lot of big weapons on there. And was on the face-off one time, and I look around. There's Patty, Andy, Alex, Dale. I'm sitting there, and I'm going, hold on a second. I'm the lowest paid guy in this power play right now, and I'm running the show back here. I'm the quarterback. What the hell's going on?
Well, it's amazing when you look at the statistics as far as, you know, the playoffs at that time. I mean, Doug, you led the team in playoff games played between 91 and 95. Dale was second, and Dave, you were right there in third, and Brad Razor, I mean, you guys are right there as well with them. It really speaks to the group that, you know, you guys knew each other so well and had such a great opportunity to enjoy everything that Dale brought on and off the ice. From, you know, Doug and Dave and Brad especially here, one word to describe Dale Hawerchuk.
Wow, it's a tough one, right? I don't think one word really can capture everything. I would say he was, well, first of all, I'd say a friend to all of us. So I think friend is very, very important, knowing that we rubbed shoulders and spent time with Dale, and we're better people for it. And so was Buffalo and the other places that Dale played. He was a guy, he studied the game. It came maybe easier to him than others, but he also, like Bodge and Hannan said, is he looked out, and even Razor's story there, he used the tools around him and he made everybody else better. I think Dale Hawerchuk was resourceful.
I'd say leadership on and off the ice. I think he affected our teams in those years tremendously, understood how to handle management, was our go-to guy for any things that were going on with our team at that time, and really cared about every guy that was on that team. I seen him talk to guys that weren't playing in and out of the lineup and saying, hey, you know what, keep working. Just leadership. He touched every part of the fabric of our teams back then.
I think I'd have to go with passionate, whether it was playing 3-on-3 after practice, in practice, or a game. He was passionate about playing, passionate about his teammates. And I know I mentioned something that what a tremendous hockey player, but what a better person. And we're never going to forget him.
Thank you, gents. Beautiful thoughts and memories. This segment's a real treat for us as we pay tribute to Dale Hawerchuk. We think of a great friend and teammate that Dale had on the Cornwall Royals when they were winning Memorial Cups back in the early 80s. And then we have the general manager of the Sabres who brought Dale to Buffalo in Gerry Meehan. So Scott Arniel, Gerry Meehan, great storytellers and a great person to speak of today. Scott, we'll start with you, given that you knew Dale. Presumably, I'm assuming that you knew Dale before Gerry knew Dale. What was it like going through the junior ranks and having such success with Dale Hawerchuk?
Yeah, you know what? I met him in Cornwall, 1979. We met at a hotel swimming pool. That's where the team had put us up. And I remember the first time we'd met, we spent, we had played junior B against each other. And you know what? We spent an hour sitting there talking about, coming to Cornwall and, what was ahead of us. And, you could tell his drive and where he was going to go with his career. And we became friends, and it lasted a lifetime.
How good was he at that age?
Yeah, he was amazing. I had gotten beaten. I was in Kingston. He was in Oshawa. He was actually playing for Mike Keenan, and they beat us in the playoffs. And he was a big reason why. And for him to come to, for us to come as, young 15, 16-year-old kids to come to Cornwall, and he just dominated right from the beginning. And, obviously we had great success, and an awful lot of that was on the backs of Dale.
Gerry, do you remember when Dale became on the radar for you?
Well, I mean, I guess he was always on the radar for all of us at that level. The opportunity to acquire a dominant centerman of that skill and talent is the ultimate goal of general managers today and then. It became apparent probably a season before the trade that we needed a little bit of more support on the front side of the offense to support Pierre Turgeon's growth and development. And basically that had a lot to do with it. Allowing the other teams to focus their defensive tactics on a young 20-year-old, 21-year-old centerman who would go on to become a star, obviously, was a lot to carry, and there was a price to pay to get him. I mean, I don't know what had happened in Winnipeg. He had somehow come to the point where the chemistry between him and the management there was not working, and they had an interest in working on the deal. You're always on the lookout for those possibilities, and it's key to know when the time is to, as they say, pull the trigger when the opportunity presents itself.
Gerry, you had to part ways with a young Scotty Arniel to make the deal happen. Was that the key to the trade, to be able to bring in Dale to Buffalo?
Well, I will say that Scott was reluctantly included. Obviously, Dale had a resume that exceeded that of Phil's and presented a greater opportunity for us at the time. And they were quite adamant that they have another player involved. And it was a multiple player deal with future transactions and trade pick trades, trade selections. So it was just a matter of them saying this can't happen unless we get this kind of a structure.
Gerry, were you at all in any way surprised? I mean, it's a weird word to use based on the fact that Dale was a decade into what would be a Hall of Fame career, but did he surprise you in any way with what else he brought to the table after you got him?
Well, you think about Dale when you're looking from a distance as a superior offensive player. Those offensive players don't come with the rest of the attributes that Dale did come with. He could compete at every level on the ice. You asked him to play a power play, you asked him to kill a penalty. He was always a threat offensively in those roles. But he also provided what I perceived to be, because I wasn't in the locker room very much, but a quiet level of leadership, and gave the team confidence that it was heading in the right direction in terms of commitment to that kind of player. And also a comfort level knowing that a veteran leader who was a star and a captain on another team was a huge impact on what was essentially an emerging youngish team.
Razor, anything else you would add to that Gerry just spoke of?
Well, I go back to Scotty and Dale back when you guys, acquired the Cornwall Royals back in, 85, 86, whatever it might have been. So that was my first interaction with Scott and Dale. And something that stood out to me was, the connection the two of them had, and then having the opportunity to come here and playing with Scott and then Dale. And it was just seemed like there was such a special connection between the two that they just kind of knew everything about each other, knew everything, how to read off each other. And a lot of the times it was like each other explaining to the other guys of maybe what they were thinking or what they were doing.
So Scott, what was the conversation like when you were actually traded for Dale?
In all honesty, Dale was pretty pissed off. He was pretty excited to come to Buffalo, but he was pretty pissed off that I was going the other way. And like Gerry had mentioned, there was management in Winnipeg that had a little bit to do with this. So I think they kind of knew what the friendship was, and they knew everything about it. And I do know that I talked to Gerry about Dale near the end of the season. I talked to Rick Dudley about Dale, and I wasn't surprised that the trade was going to happen or may happen. For me, it was, it would have been an awesome for two of us to play together again in Buffalo. It didn't work out, but, he went there and did great things, had some great seasons there. So at the end of the day, it all worked out for all of us.
Scotty, what kind of conversation did you guys have as, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, whatnot, looking ahead to a potential NHL career? Like, you're juniors, you're dreaming of the big lights, right? But what type of conversation do you remember having with Dale about the fact that in a couple of short years, you guys were going to be playing in the National Hockey League? Yeah,
one thing, especially early on with Dale, my big goal when I was a kid, when I was 13, 14, was playing major junior hockey, and I wasn't even thinking the NHL. And so when I got to Cornwall, I was like, wow, I made it. But Dale was the one going, he was driving farther. He was already looking way down the road. He was talking about not only having success, we knew we had a good team in Cornwall, and he was talking about, getting in the bright lights and being one of those elite teams. But then he started talking about the NHL, and it's amazing. We used to play in an outdoor rink in his backyard of his billet's place, and we used to play late at night, and it happened all the time. And we'd be talking about different teams and different places where it'd be great to play. And so he was, our conversations are always about, it was winning, obviously, which helped a lot in Cornwall, but it was also about getting to that chance to get to the NHL, what it would take. And, he certainly, his last year became, the elite player in Canada and the world. And then obviously the unbelievable part, we were fortunate enough to both get drafted to Winnipeg.
Well, Gerry, Scott, if you could leave us maybe with the last interaction that you had with Dale and what you'll always remember about that.
Well, my interaction with Dale ended when he left the club and went on, I think, in free agency. He really was a gifted guy in many ways, and watching some of the highlights, I realize now that the key to his talent was he was probably smarter than most people on the ice by a mile. And he figured stuff out way faster than anybody else. So his quick shot, his quick movements, his quick passes were all based upon an intuitive sense of the game. But I just remember him being a quiet presence. My role after the trade was basically to watch everything from the press box. And I was just confident and observed that he was doing exactly what I'd hoped he'd do, which would be provide veteran leadership along with a star capability that I think really helped our fan base understand the role of that player and where the team was heading.
Yeah, mine was a little tougher scenario. It was the last couple of days, obviously, near the end. We had talked, I had seen him, prior to that, and his excitement of, the first time he got to ring the bell, and then, I kind of knew when the second round hit that he was in trouble. And he, he didn't want his family to suffer, to see him suffer. And but you know what? We had some amazing laughs, and just we've had some FaceTimes. I know it was FaceTime things, and he had told me about all the players and all the people that he had called, which I thought was, an amazing thing. I know a lot of people were touched that he reached out to them and wanted to say goodbye on his terms, and he really wanted this to be about his terms, and he didn't want to, be wasting away or, in that sense. So it was extremely touching. I mean, obviously, very memorable. But the biggest thing for me was on the day he passed, he phoned me on that Tuesday morning. And you know what, just got the chance to spread, to each other that, talk about the love we had for each other and how much we meant to each other. And it was a chance to say goodbye to somebody that's been a big part of my life. And so there was some closure there.
Thank you for that, Scott. We'd heard a lot of amazing stories about how many people, like you said, Dale reached out to in those final hours, and we really appreciate you sharing those thoughts, and Gerry as well. Just think of what Dale's impact was on this team, and for you, if you hadn't gone out and got him, we wouldn't have been able to cherish those memories. Thank you both.
In support of Hockey Fights Cancer Month, the Buffalo Sabres are proud to honor the life of Dale Hawerchuk. In his memory, we're offering a limited edition puzzle and poster featuring a mosaic image of the Sabres legend, composed of hundreds of Buffalo Sabres game action shots. Net proceeds will benefit Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center and Hawerchuk Strong. To purchase yours and support the cause, please visit sabres.com/hockeyfightscancer.
Of course, when Dale Hawerchuk arrived on the scene in Buffalo, Dave Andreychuk had been here, Clint Malarchuk had been here, and so now we had three Chucks on one team, which was pretty unusual in NHL circumstances. Clint, Dave, what was that like when I think people started playing off the names and the trio that you were here in Buffalo?
I think Rick Jeanneret had fun with it, to tell you the truth.
I'm sure he did. Yeah, no, I mean, we all got roots out west. That's where it all started, right? Like when you think of a Chuck, you don't think of him coming from Ontario. He's coming from out west somewhere. So originally, but yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. I mean, I will just say this, that we watched him from afar as players, and then to think that he was actually going to come to Buffalo was pretty awesome for all of us.
Clint, can you say the same thing as someone who had to face him in practice?
Yeah, he was fun in practice because he's a competitor, and he didn't. Some guys will ease up in practice, like McGillney. He was hilarious because he I don't know, Andy, if you remember this, when he was a rookie, I believe, and Alex would just come in, he'd get to the blue line, just kind of flip it in on goal and go to the corner. But Dale was competitive, and he had always tried different moves, always tried different shots, and he wanted to score. So his competitive level was even there in practice. I met Dale for the first time in 1987. It was the Rendezvous tournament in Quebec City where the NHL All-Stars played the Russians in a 2-game tournament. And, you're meeting all these guys. And, to me, Dale was a superstar, of course. But it was Gretzky, Lemieux, half the Oilers team back then was on that All-Star team, Coffey and all those guys. And Dale was just the epitome of class and just a real humble guy. And, I don't know why I was even in that tournament, but I made it and I was pretty overwhelmed. But Dale was just one of those even-keeled guys that just went along. And, even then in that group, Messier and Gretzky, big leaders, but Dale was right there too. Dale was a quiet leader. He led by example.
Clint, I guess I've been wanting to ask somebody this question, and nobody better than the goalie. I mean, Dale scored over 500 goals in the National Hockey League. You faced him in Winnipeg. You faced him in practice. What did you learn when you got to play with him that you didn't know about him, about his shot, about the way he plays the game, something that really impressed you?
He really tried to do different things, like I said, in practice. He wasn't just trying to have that go-to shot or that go-to deke or move. He always tried different things. I used to tease him when we were teammates because when I was in Washington, he was in Winnipeg and he got a penalty shot. And so, of course, I'm going to tease him about that now that we're teammates. And he said he was trying to go 5-hole. And the puck, he said, the puck jumped. And I said, no. We ended up, I think, finding the video. Yeah, the puck did jump off his stick. The ice was so bad there in the old Cap Center back in those days.
Andy, as king of the power play, you must have enjoyed having Dale as a leader when it came to the extra man unit.
100%, yeah. I will go back to when I met Dale. It was in my Oshawa days, to be honest with you. Back in junior, you remember that he was claimed by the Generals at the beginning and actually played when he was 14. And then, they lost him in the draft. So when I got to Oshawa, I had heard of Dale Hawerchuk because of that. And then he had come back in town every once in a while. We would see him in town and he would be hanging around some of the guys the local guys, John McLean and others that were from Oshawa. So I met him back then when he was just kind of starting his career. I think he had already won one Memorial Cup. Again, I will say this, that when you get a guy of that stature to be on your team, he had already played 10 years in the league and over 1,000 points, by the way. He averaged 100 points a season in his first 10 years, which is incredible. And then to know that he's going to be on your team. I was licking my chops knowing I just had to stand there somewhere close to the net. He was going to throw a little wrister in there. So I would imagine a lot of my power play goals, Dale Hawerchuk was part of.
Dave, you were obviously an offensive player. What made Dale's offensive side of his game so special?
Well, I think his, the hockey IQ was off the chart. I think Clint is right. He was very deceptive. I think his speed was deceptive. When he got in open ice, I think he was able to barely ever got hit because he knew where everybody else was on the ice. And that, I think, he was a pass first kind of guy too, right? So when I look at, our times together, I'm just trying to get open for the man, right? And I know the puck's coming eventually. So really super talented offensive player. But again, the competitive level is what makes superstars. We all got talent. But what made him special was, he was competitive. And, you think back to his days and he was kind of foreshadowed by all the Oilers and Calgary, but this was a legit superstar in the league.
I think you can go back to that and say where his stature of the superstar in the league, when he went onto the world stage and how people really were able to take note, playing with Lemieux and Gretzky and these kind of guys, how he stood out in that scenario.
Agreed. Yeah, 100%. I think, when you put those guys together, on his team, the Winnipeg Jets competed, but, they just were outmatched year after year, and this guy, it was tough on him. I'm sure it was very tough on him. But when you're right, Razor, when he gets to the world stage and he's playing for Team Canada, it came out. Maybe people knew of him, but now they watched him play with really, really good players. And we can all remember '87 Canada Cup. It was legendary, right? It was legendary. I will say there was, us in Hamilton, as a Hamiltonian, we're still talking about '87. That was the greatest, in Cops Coliseum was the greatest game ever.
You guys ever talk to Dale about him hooking the Russian player coming back as he created just enough interference to not get a penalty? Listen, that's a 4-minute hooking penalty in today's age. But you guys ever talk to Dale about that goal that Mario scored and ended up clinching the series for Team Canada?
That was Mike Keenan coaching that, Andy, right? Yeah, because when Dale passed, Mike sent me a text saying, "We lost a good man today. Coached him at 14, then Canada Cup. Too sick to win another face-off." And you know, Mike Keenan's coached a lot of great players. So he held Dale in very high regard.
I will say this, that he, Razor's got a lot of stories, but Dale Hawerchuk had a lot of stories too, right? And, when he gets there to Buffalo, of course, we're all over him about that Canada Cup series, and he was willing to talk about it. I had to, you had to give him a couple of whiskeys to get him going.
Yeah.
After that, he opened up, and we were able to, all of us that had been watching from afar, some really, really cool stories about Wayne and those Canada Cup days. It was pretty impressive.
Dave, what's your lasting memory of Dale Hawerchuk?
I will say two things. I think it's the competitive level. I will say this about he was a quiet leader for sure, 100%. For me personally, I learned a lot from him. I benefited from his good play. Ultimately, it's not one man that gets into the Hockey Hall of Fame. There's lots of people around him. And I attribute Dale Hawerchuk for me getting in there in 2017 because of such a special player. I was so happy at the draft, and Crystal was there, and what they've done for Dale, and just a really, really good man. We had good times together, not only on the ice but off.
And Clint, for you?
Well, I got to know Dale kind of on a personal level. Winnipeg, Crystal was into horses, and I think they bought a horse farm there. So when I'd heard that, so when Dale came to Buffalo, we had that in common about horses. So we got to know each other on that level. But a great teammate. If I had to pick one word or two, maybe, great teammate, that's 2 words, but the other one is class.
Really well said. That too will really resonate with our audience as part of this tribute. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Boy, an awful lot of great stories and great adjectives to describe one Dale Hawerchuk. It's been really nice coming together, gents, for this tribute to Dale. How would you like to say goodbye to Dale Hawerchuk? Rob?
Well, you know what? I just would look back to Dale and thank him for everything that he was able to contribute to my success, the things that I learned from him, the friendship. But I can remember Dale coming off and being as big a competitor, as good as he is. He always got so excited when he did something on the ice. He'd come back to the bench and be like, "Hey, did you see me turn that guy? Did you see that move?" And it always kind of caught me for a guy at that level, how excited he got by little things like that. And, it was just good to sit and listen and hear guys all across the board of how well he was respected and what he brought to the game, not only to the individuals, but to the game itself. And I think that is an awesome way for Dale to be remembered, that he made a difference in the game. A lot of guys come and play in this game, and they might not leave that legacy or that difference. He did it, and it was well-deserved because he made a lot of people, a lot better people, and players along the way.
Dan, I could see you smiling, just especially with Andreychuk there. I think Andreychuk really hit home for guys that grew up in the Southern Ontario area. Just some of the memories he had of Dale. What do you recall the most?
Just hearing Dale before he passed talk about the Canada Cup and his role on that face-off with Gretzky and Lemieux on the ice, and how you looked at the hierarchy of the game and where Razor and his teammates knew where Dale fit in with those players. In that moment, he realized, look, all I'm going to do is tie up my guy at the dot. Mario, you get the puck, and then it's Wayne and Mario, go do your thing. And he followed up the play, as you brought up, Brian, and Marty, in such a fashion that he still found a smart way to contribute to a very important moment. And I just really want to say, as a guy who really obviously didn't spend a lot of time with Dale, but thank him for not giving up on the game. He got into coaching, and as Rob just mentioned, he passed on his personality to a next generation of hockey players that, for goodness sake, I hope never goes away. And I really hope his legacy is passed on by this young group of men that will make their way one day, hopefully, into the NHL.
Well said. Marty?
Well, for me, I knew Dale was a tremendous leader, but again, listening to all former teammates and people that knew him best talk about his leadership quality, it was not just about the hockey player that he was. He was a leader as a human being, and he was a leader all the way until the last day. And Scott Arniel pointed it out, how they talked the morning of Dale's passing, and you can see it in his wife, in his kids, in everybody around him. Dale was a tremendous leader. We are lucky to have played the game and played at the highest level, but that's not your legacy. Your legacy is what else you do with your life, how you affect people in everyday situation, and that's Dale's legacy, being a leader at home with young hockey players, with young people around, and you can see it in his family and you can see it in his friends.
It's hard to imagine that there's ever been a perfect person in the world, let alone in sports, but I think it is pretty fitting that number 10 looks so good on Dale Hawerchuk.
Thank you for watching this special edition of the Royal Round, presented by Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center. For more on how you can join the fight and support Roswell Park and Hawerchuk Strong, please visit sabres.com/hockeyfightscancer.